Hello, everybody. How are you? I'm so glad to see you. I hope that if you are joining in today for the first time, you feel welcomed and really enjoy getting to know this program. You're on Lamb Network. I'm Dr. Robin Gould, and my website is newcovenantpath.com. And you can reach me there. I have some blogs and podcasts and a few things that you might find interesting on there. And of course, a number of these things here on YouTube that you can look through. And unfortunately, they're not titled, which I'm probably going to find a way to list on the website, on my website, which teaching is what, because I think it's helpful when people think, oh, I want to share a certain teaching and they don't really know which one it was. But I also want to apologize for my previous broadcast where I just moved into a new house and I went from fiber to coaxial cable. So that's been a big problem. So I barely made it in here at my seat in time to get this going, to make sure everybody was not using their computers at all, like a big rule here. So anyway, we're just going to hope that this works. So I hope we don't go into fuzzy. It was probably like 10 minutes into the broadcast and it just was fuzzy. I mean, you could hear me, my audio was fine, but it was very fuzzy and I think it was really distracting. But anyway, we'll just try to get through. So anyway, yes, I'm glad to see you. And I'm glad that you're here. And if you are, actually, let me get my chat going. If you're new to the program, I have this ring light that I think is so annoying in my glasses. So I try not to use them. It really annoys me. But let me go to comments in case people want to pop in. I always love when people pop in and say hi, because it just makes me feel great. And a lot of times this is 6 o'clock Eastern time, which is a really bad time for most people to watch anything live. So a lot of people just like to watch the archives, which is fine. That's pretty much how I live, not doing a lot of live things. But anyway, I thought we could just get into what we're talking about today. And what I wanted to talk about was, I want to talk a little bit about the portion. So I like to keep the theme that we have every week, like on the portion, because I think that's how, universally we are together, right? We're together on the portion. And I love that whole global connectedness that we have. And I really enjoy sharing that with you. And so there's a few things I wanted to mention. So, from the Messianic perspective, we also add the Brit Hadashah to our Torah portion. So we segment the Newer Testament to, portion that out as well. And of course, the Haftarah with the prophets. But I wanted to talk a little bit about today's Torah portion in Deuteronomy. And okay, so if you are new to this program and you don't know this, I'm an attachment therapist. That's what I do. I have a master's in marriage and family therapy and a doctorate in religious education. And so attachment, though, is my specialty. It's what I do. It's what I'm passionate about. And I really like teaching people the Bible from an attachment lens. Now, is that an easy job? I don't know how to answer that, because attachment is attachment. It's not up for opinion. It is what it is. And the Torah is a very difficult book to understand when you don't speak Hebrew and you're not in the cultural setting this book was written, and when this was written. Actually, somebody just popped in, and it's Barb. Hi. Oh, you are my weekly breath of fresh air too, Barbara. Oh, thank you for coming. I love you. I'm so glad you're here. So yeah, that was great. I already feel great because Barbara's here. Barbara and I go to Israel together whenever we can, and I really enjoy her. If you ever get to go to Israel, go with Barb, because if you're nice, she likes the nice people, and if you're mean, she'll make you nice. She has her ways. But anyway, I'm glad she's here. From an attachment perspective, that would mean, and also if you're new to the program, let me say to all the people, remember, whatever has happened today or any day before today, the future begins now. Beautiful thing about the Father, his mercies are new every morning. And I'm going to go with even every minute, right? Because I think we repent and we work through. But anyway, the Torah portion, I feel like today is definitely beyond the scope of what we're going to cover in an hour in terms of addressing some of the things in there. Go look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things in the portion, a lot of language that's very savage, seems very cutthroat and is very difficult for people that are broken and seeking and wondering what this God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is about. And they can go in and read and think, that's a terrible God. That's a God that wants to destroy people. And okay, we don't serve a God that wants to destroy people. We serve a God that desires that none would perish. And again, that whole thing goes beyond the scope of our show today. But I want you to remember that you don't speak that language. It's been interpreted from language to language to language to you. And there's a lot more to it than we can encapsulate in the context of what we understand in our culture today. So I just want you to understand that, where we can't cover it all. What I want to encourage you to do is just trust the Father. He is a good and loving God. He is a good and loving parent. And there are language issues, and there are attitude issues, and there's a mindset shift that needs to happen to understand this God. And he reveals himself to you through various ways. You can make a cake and find how he's speaking to you. Gardening. You can be getting your eyebrows tweezed by a professional, and the Father can speak to you. He can talk to a donkey. Okay? He can do things. And I want you to understand that he is going to reveal himself to you. And he's going to reveal himself to you through his Torah, through his word, through his commandments, because he does that. We don't always understand it all, and we really need to understand that we don't understand it all before we get an opinion or an attitude about this God. He's the only God, this God, right? He's the one true God. He's the only big G God, okay? Somebody else just popped in, and it was Andrew. Hello, nice to see you. Shalom to you as well. Glad you're here. Very glad you're here. Well, so let's start in with what we are going to talk about. So like I said, I'm not going into that whole Deuteronomy situation because as an attachment therapist, if I can't do it justice, if I can't really cover it and feel like we've had our breakthrough together, I don't want to go there, okay? Because I don't want to open up a can of worms and just like only have a pair of tweezers, okay? I'm going to get all the worms out, or I'm not going to get any worms out. So I want to talk about a specific thing that is in the Brit Hadashah for the portion that they've added for this, and we'll talk about that. And some of this links into a book that I wrote. Let's talk about that a little bit. Get my notes. I still have to write down exactly how to get into the broadcast. It's so funny. Not the details of tech person. That's me. So let's look a little bit. Okay, so let's pull it up. I'm going to share a screen real quick, and we're going to just look at it. And let's just see what we see here. I'm going to share a screen here. And let's read this one little part that I want to read. Okay, so here we go. Share screen. Okay, we're right here. Do you see? Okay, so it says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he questioned his disciples. Who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied. And that means particularly him, because born in flesh, right? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you? Jesus asks, who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus replies, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Then he admonished the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Christ. Okay, a lot of people find that interesting too. It's all interesting. Okay, but let's look at a few of the things here. Let me stop sharing screen. How do I stop screen? Okay, So let's talk. There's a few things going on here I want to kind of dig into. And I want you, if you have read my book, it's called Peter's Vision, Beacon or Bacon. See there on the cover. This is a Becky book, Beky, Building and Encouraging the Kingdom of Yeshua. And you'll see there's like a paper bag theme and that rips off. And there's a picture underneath to kind of reveal something about the book that the different authors write. And this is Peter's Vision, Beacon or Bacon. So it's a lighthouse, right? So the question would be, was this about Peter suggesting we eat bacon, or was Peter being sent as a beacon and the message to us to be a beacon, right, of the love, vessels of courtship, as I would say. So I want to talk about this a little bit because in this book we cover this, and I want to talk about a few points. So here's what he says. He says, "Oh, Laura Lee, shalom. I'm so glad you're here. I missed you. I'm glad to see you again. Thank you for coming. Oh, good. Look at this. We're a cord of 3 now. We're 4 with me." So here's what they say. First of all, he is asking the group, who do people say that I am? And he refers to himself in third person, the Son of Man, right? Which is the him. Okay. Oh, good to see you. Love, Laura Lee. And so, and then they say, people say you're John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And then what does he say? He says, but what about you? Who do you say I am? So he's saying a few things. He's saying a lot in just that, right? He's like, okay, so that's what people are saying about me, but what do you say about me? So he's saying, well, so people that don't know me very well have some pretty cool theories. And I'm inferring that he might be thinking, that's an interesting theory. But who do you that walk with me, eat with me, talk with me, process the environment with me? Who do you say I am? So what is he saying? He's saying there are going to be people who don't walk with me, that don't know me, and they're going to have theories about who I am. But who do you say I am? You walk with me, you eat with me, you sit with me and talk with me. You watch me live out the commandments, walk out the commandments. So he's saying, okay, so that's groupthink with all kinds of theories, but you're not part of groupthink. You're part of me. So what do you think about me? So that is interesting. Is that not a lesson for us? To not get sucked into groupthink. Now, that does not mean abandon community mindedness, because I think that's one of the biggest problems, which is why we have, thousands of denominations and all of these problems in Christianity and in the Messianic movement, is because people are far too individualistic, and they don't appreciate community, and they don't appreciate a communal interpretation of scripture for the sake of harmony. And I actually have a very big problem with that. And it leads into a lot of anti-Semitism, and that really bothers me. Okay, but that's not where we're going today. What he's saying is, how do you think about me? Because it's going to be different from the way they think about me. Now, he's not being divisive in saying us and them. He's like, what are you hearing around you? Now, in this time in our life right now, we're living in some very strange times where people have a lot of things to think and say about God, about religion, right? I mean, you had houses of worship just like shut down. You've had people with all kinds of apocalyptic ideas, and some of them are really interesting, and some of them are just really out there, and some are scholarly and academic, and some are very ancient aliens. And you're getting a lot of different opinions. This is a time of questioning. I really think this is interesting timing to have this in as portioned out to us. Because who are all of the people around you saying that he is? 100,000 things. So you want to know who he is, get close and walk closely And that's how you'll know who he is. And he's asking you very specifically, you're hearing all that noise, but what do you think as you walk with me? Let's move on a little bit. Keep going in here. Oh, Laura Lee, that man, he gave us a brain to use. Think for ourselves with the power of his Ruach residing in us. Now that is extremely wise. And by the way, Laura Lee says hi to everyone else. Yeah, very good. Thank you. That is, I could almost be done with Laura Lee's comment. Okay. So Simon Peter pipes up and he says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. He's like, I know. You know, that's who you are. And here's what Yeshua says. He said, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, which is very interesting. And I wish we had more time, but there are so many great commentaries about why son of Jonah, right? 3 days in the belly of the fish, the Messiah connection, right? There's a lot to that. I wish we had 12 hours sometimes, but that was the person that piped up and was like, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Or maybe he didn't feel like it was going out on a limb because he felt close to Yeshua and protected by Yeshua and covered by Yeshua. So he was happy to answer. Now, it can't be upsetting to someone to say, I think God appointed you as his son and you are that one, right? I mean, that's, I don't want to say flattering, but, right? But Yeshua was a tough guy in a lot of ways, right? He had his ways of get behind me, Satan, you know, and they're like, you shouldn't die, because he knew all the things we don't know. Okay. And so he says, you are, you know, our salvation is basically what he's saying. And so he said, blessed are you. And he says, and then he goes in and he says, because you didn't go by the crowd, you listened to the Father. He says, no flesh or blood revealed this to you. The Father, my Father in heaven, told you this. So, yes, he speaks to us. Yes, he will speak to us. He does speak to us. He's speaking to us right now. So, here's what he says. Now, here's where it gets interesting too. Now, we know this, and if you are Catholic, no offense to you at all. Please don't take offense. I'll challenge a little idea here, and my book challenges it better than I'm going to do live talking. But this is the scripture where people are in this document. They're starting up the idea that Peter was the first pope. So I do challenge that. Now, I am not, you know, bucking all kinds of leadership, and anyone who knows me knows that I certainly am not here to be divisive or whatever. But here's what's interesting. The idea of this sentence has been convoluted because people don't speak Greek. Now, I don't think you're bad if you don't speak Greek, but here's what we need to know. I don't speak Greek. I have interlinear information, textual comparison, and people around me that speak Greek and teach me what I need to know, because I'm reading this document and I need to know what it says. This is Greek. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, I'm going to read you something. So he says, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Now, this looks like he's commissioning Peter to be the foundation of the church. Okay, this would be a messianic replacement almost. Like, hey, I'm going to pass the torch of that messianic idea onto you. And then you move on, and I give you the keys to everything, and what you say goes. Well, that isn't what he's saying. In fact, he's saying the opposite of that. So what is he saying? Let's look at it. Okay. So it says, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. Okay. Now, if you spoke Greek and you were watching this conversation occur in Greek, this meaning that I'm going to share with you would be very obvious to you. So I'm not giving you like this wild out there theory that's strange and you have to like do acrobats to make it fit what I'm telling you. This is actually what it says and what the words mean, though it's not been translated as such in our modern translations. Let's look. I'm actually just going to read this little part. This is this little tiny sub part of the chapter. It says, what's in a name? It says the name Peter is Petros in Greek. It does indeed mean the word rock. However, Petros is the form of a small stone or a movable rock, like a stone one could easily throw or put in their pocket. But Yeshua uses this term to refer to Peter, but he uses a different term when he uses the word for the word rock in the same sentence. It says, let me read it exactly here. When Yeshua uses the word for rock the second time in that sentence, he does not use the word Petros, but instead he uses the word Petros, which means huge rock, large cliff, or immovable rock. These two different words for rock are usually translated as one single word, but Yeshua uses two different terms for very good reason. The good reason is that they have different meanings, and he wanted to highlight this. He refers to Peter as Petros, the small rock, and he refers to himself as Petros, the huge rock. Okay, Yeshua uses both words in the same sentence, denoting the differences in the terms. And then I give you a few more examples here. But, let me read this. Yeshua uses both words in the same sentence, denoting the differences in the terms. In 1 Corinthians 10:4, Paul calls Yeshua the rock, Petros, as well. So this is not the only time that this reference is made. It's understood by the apostles. Being the Messiah, Yeshua is not a rock, he is the rock. Conversely, Peter, being a follower of the Messiah, is not the rock, he is a rock. A fuller context of the verses in question is a more scholarly method of answering the question of whether Peter is the rock upon which the church would be built. And so let's read this. Let's read it in the context of what I just shared. He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, small rock, and on this large rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it," because it can't prevail against him. "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven." Give you the keys to change it? To predetermine it? No. To operate within it and build what is in heaven on earth, right? "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound on heaven." Now listen. You know what the rest is there. Actually, let me keep that page because I think I'm going to read something else coming up. All right, now let's talk about that. So if you're watching this conversation happen in Greek and you know the difference between these two words, you are not going to be thinking ever for 1 second that the Messiah is standing there and saying that you are going to be the head of the church. I'm going to build the church on you. That's a lot of burden to put on a person. The whole church will be built on you. And then you have all these people following him saying, well, I'll embody Peter and then I'll be the foundation of the church. But see, the fact that that whole idea of giving the keys to the kingdom, now here, thy will on earth as it is in heaven. That doesn't mean I have the keys to generate predestine or generate or manufacture the ideas as I see fit. I'm not the authority. But what it says is I'm in allegiance to the authority that's already been established by the King of Kings. So yes, since you're already in allegiance to everything in that room, I'm going to give you a key to it because you're not going to move stuff around. Because this room is sacred and perfect. The room of the law, if you will. It's full of perfect statutes that keep you alive and keep you safe and cover you and are my heart of keeping you with me in the way that you should be. So he says, you get that room, that means you get keys to it. But if you're a toddler with Reese's Pieces fingers, you're not in that room. You're going to make all kinds of stains and you're going to mess with it. If you don't accept that room because it's just not the colors you like and the furniture you want, you can't have the keys to get in there, to look around and figure out where the furniture's placed so that you can come back and set that room up for other people to see it. Because what is a church supposed to be? It's supposed to be a reflection. It's the bride of Christ, right? We are to be a reflection. We are to build that kingdom, which is a reflection of what he's already built. When we're in allegiance with him, whatever we bind on earth is in allegiance with what's already been bound in heaven. And whatever we loose on earth, we're in allegiance with what's already been loosed in heaven. You see the difference there? It's almost like, well, that's a big job. We have to be God. Wow, we have to be Yeshua. Because I just, barely got through my workout this morning, but I got to be the Messiah. See, that's a burden. That is an interruption and a fracture of attachment. Do you hear me? All right, the board's lighting up. I like it. I'm afraid. Let me look. See, it's all about his kingdom, not a denomination, Laura Lee. Yes, that's right. Let me find you. Yes, that is so right. And you know what? Just like you're saying, Laura Lee, when we miss that point, we miss a contact point for intimacy with the Messiah, right? We miss a contact point where we are told it's not your burden, it's your privilege to share what the kingdom is and build this kingdom on earth. So if you're watching this conversation in Greek, you could even picture the Messiah, as much as we can picture him, right? He says, you are Peter, little rock. Chip off the old block because you're in allegiance with me. You know I'm God, right? You know I'm the Messiah. And that is good because this is the thing the church is going to be built on because it's in allegiance to me, the big rock. It's not on you, Peter. It's on me. I'm the one that's going to go 3 days in the belly of the fish and survive. I'm the one that's going to be the example of resurrection, the example of forgiveness, the example of sin, the example of all the things that is going to redeem every single person that was ever conceived on this planet. Ever. He is not bequeathing this on Peter. He is reminding Peter it's on him. And that when you go forth and build this kingdom, I've come before you as it is in heaven, right? This has already been built and is established. You're going to be a reflection of that. You're going to be a chip off the old block. Isn't that a point of intimacy for us? I don't want to miss that, right? We don't want to miss that. So I recommend get this book. It's really cheap. It's really short. Look how small that is. You can get that book and read that part. Look at the word. Go into the interlinear and see. I can even show you, actually, that the words are different. Actually, let me do it. Let me not tell you I'll do it. Let me do it. Let's see here. Marie. Hi, Marie. So good to see you. Laura Lee says, walk in his footsteps. Walk as he walked. He walked out the Torah, the instructions for love and life. Love him and love his creation. Our neighbors are his creation. Amen, my sister. I need to hang out with you. Okay. You need to be going to Israel. Pardon me. Okay. So let's look at the Peter. Oh my goodness. Let's go into the interlinear. Let me show it to you. Okay. Let me share a screen. Here we go. Let's do this thing. We're going to do this. So glad you're all here. All right. You see this? See where it says Peter, Petros, and then do you look? Petra. You see? This is 4074, and believe me, Strong's is not always right. I only use it here when it's reflecting an academic scholar. Okay. But look over here. Petra, 4073. Not the same word. Similar, but not the same word. How about that? And of course, the gates of Hades cannot prevail against anything Yeshua has anything to do with, right? Okay. So let's not miss that. Let's not take on that messianic burden that we need to be the church built on us as a foundation. But let's not miss the point that he says, I've paved this beautiful path that's really difficult, and I'm going to walk it first, and you're going to watch it just a little bit, not as much as me. But if you're in allegiance with me, you get the keys. You get to be a part of this thing. This thing already exists, this kingdom. It's in your midst. You get the keys. Okay, so we're in allegiance with him. Okay, so I think I'm redundant now. I think I'm getting redundant here. Okay, so Peter separated himself from groupthink. That conversation would be obvious if we spoke Greek and we were watching this happen. We've talked about bound and loosed. So let's talk about, let's see, where are we in our time? Let's see, oh goodness, we're over halfway done. Look at that. All right. So let me just say one thing about the dietary laws before we go into the second part of the message here. So the dietary laws are a really great way to talk to people about how much the Father loves them. Now, some people think the exact opposite. Like, I don't like going into the South and telling people not to have their baby back ribs. Like, that makes me the enemy. Like, I'm Nineveh to these people and they're Jonah. Okay, because you don't want, I'm Jonah and they're Nineveh. It's like, I don't want to go and tell people that because they feel like, when you mess with people's like ribs and barbecue, you are really going into the court. And you know what? I'm not even making fun of it because I lived in Tennessee for 15 years and I get it. And, but the dietary laws are so much bigger than food. In this book, we kind of go into that. We talk about that. Marie, oh, hi there. We love all you. We love you too. And we miss you, Marie. And look at Barbara's like, I'm glad you're here, Maria, Laura and Andrew. So everyone's all together. Laura Lee lives in the South now. Hog heaven. Yeah. So, but two things about the dietary laws. Now, one way I like to teach the dietary laws to people is just straight, this is what the word says. It's been interpreted to mean this, that grace is the new thing and wrath was the old thing and law was the old thing and grace is the new thing. And I would challenge that and ask you to take grace a lot further, right? It was always grace. It wasn't law then, grace now. It's grace then, grace now, because we all need grace. And the law never saved anyone. And so we know this, right? So there's been no change in these laws. And that's a huge point of contention with a lot of people. We're not going to go there, but we had to touch on it. But the dietary laws are a point of intimacy and identity. And here's the thing. If you are not eating biblically clean or whatever, I am not even making any sort of judgment on you. But here's what I'm saying on the other side of this. Well, first of all, if we obeyed the dietary laws, all of us, the whole world, can you picture what our oceans and lakes and streams and rivers would be like? Can you imagine how sparkling, perfectly clean? Think of how many water cleansers would remain in these waters. I don't think any oil spill would make it past a day if you actually had this ecosystem as it was built without us dragging nets from the bottom of all the scavengers and taking out all of the creatures that are supposed to eat all the decomposing matter and all the fecal matter and all the stuff to keep your salmon so clean and so perfect. That right there, just from an environmental standpoint, is annoying. But the dietary laws are, I think, a perfect way for him to remind you that you are so special to him and every person is special to him. So these laws go out to all people. Don't eat a blue dart frog and die in 10 seconds, right? You're special. Don't eat these things. But because pork and shellfish don't kill you in 10 seconds, they think, okay, so that's this book. We talk about that particular issue. What was in the sheet? What did that vision mean? Please check it out. But the dietary laws are a place of intimacy. Eating together. Like if we all were having lunch right now, you know what you can say, you know somebody, but it's a different thing when you say, oh yes, so-and-so, we had lunch last week. When you're sharing a meal with people, that actually tells people that relationship's elevated like one more level. You've taken the time to get together and share a meal together. There's intimacy in food. There is. That's why people struggle with food so much, because it touches on a lot of core things. It touches on our childhood. It touches on our feelings of being nourished and safe and protected, and the times that we dieted and prevailed or whatever. There's just a lot going on with food. We have to be merciful with people who struggle with food. And it doesn't surprise me that defining what is and isn't food is an identity issue of people who know Yeshua and walk with him, know him better, know him closer, right? They every time, 3 times a day or however many times you eat a day. I eat twice a day. So twice a day, it's like in the back of my mind, I eat clean for a zillion years now, but when you're faced with what to eat and you're reminded that there are parameters around what you are to eat, I feel safe. I feel good. I like that. I don't feel deprived of something that isn't food. I feel like I've been given the key to go in that room and check it out and see what was in the room. And on the plates, there was nothing unclean because he gave me the key to see the kingdom that's inside me. Do you follow me here? The kingdom isn't something you touch or go out and get. It's in you. It's inside you. But I'll give you the key when you're in allegiance to me. So when my husband and I are big Downton Abbey fans, and we would we went to a couple places in Manhattan and in where's the other place I saw that? Anyway, Manhattan and then Palm Beach. And we just went twice because we loved being able to go in and watch and see the setup. Like that's how it really was. Like they used that on set to watch the show. Like we got to see Lady Mary's bedroom, and we got to see the kitchen, all these scenes, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, that's the stove. That's all that stuff. We were given the keys to see the way it was. We weren't given the keys to go in and rearrange it and ask them to refilm it or say, well, that might be the way they filmed it, but I rearranged it now. And so now when we watch the show, I want you to watch it in the context of how I rearranged it all. No, that isn't real. Don't get confused with what was being said here. When you get the keys, it's because you are already there. We went to the Downton Abbey exhibit because we loved it the way it was. We weren't wanting to improve it. We wanted to go and see what it was like. Got some more comments here. Laura Lee, there's a reason he says not to do a certain thing, not to eat certain things. He loves us. He is the creator. He designed our bodies and he gave us the proper diet in the garden. I struggled with food addiction. It's hard to break these habits and renew our minds, but he gives us the power to overcome ingrained habits and addictions. He loves us. Amen. And that's exactly what Messiah is saying. He's like, groupthink is that, and in groups and crowds, you can even take this down to like a more personal level. It might have been hard when you went out with your friends and changed your eating habits, and they weren't used to that because the relationship was formed around food in certain places. I've dealt with that as a therapist so much with people that feel very disconnected from systems that were really formed around food. And it wasn't that you still can't have food. It's just that the parameters need to be changed about food. So food, super intimate, super personal, very communal. and an identifier and an opportunity for us to see that we belong to him and he belongs to us, right? That's a point of intimacy. So that's why I love teaching the love of the Father through the dietary laws, because I think it opens up the opportunity to show mistranslations. Because once you actually go in, like if you read my trilogy of the 3 Becky books that I wrote, the very particular ones that cover the main apologetics for the dietary laws, I'm not bragging. It's the point. The arguments I make are indisputable. And it's because it's not that hard to prove. It's not that hard to make sense of things and to link things together in truth. It's not that hard when you actually just look at that, right? When you look at the words Peter and Peter, rock and rock, when you see these words being different words, you're like, okay, so if they're different words, they have different meanings. What does that mean? Well, if you already look at it through an attachment lens, through an intimate lens, through the law never hurt us lens, you're going to be able to see it. So when we read today's Brit Hadashah portion, we need to remember it's a big hug from the Creator. It's a big, I'm your dietitian. I'm your Father. I'm the one that keeps you safe. I'm the one that created the universe, so I tell you how it works. So it's really important that we can kind of wrap our arms around there. They are excellent. Barb, yes, they are. They are excellent. And if you go to Israel, I'm going to tell you something. The food there is so good and different. Even my husband, when we were in Israel, he was like, the lettuce here is better. Like, why is that happening? But it really, really is if you ever get to go there. But so about the dietary laws, and because we're almost out of time here. So one thing we want to do is we want to make sure if you're sharing this with somebody, you sent them this video, and if you're watching this for the first time, no condemnation over you. If you're working this out, like you're working through this issue and you're not sure and you go back and forth, that is normal, right? Is that, my friends? Amen if you think it's normal when you're first learning to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Anybody resonate with that? I always liken it to if you're giving birth and the baby is crowning. I always say this. I know this is a graphic example. I shouldn't use, but it's like that head. It's like comes out, goes back in, comes out, goes back in until it finally crowns. It's like that. It's just like it takes a while before things stick until you stop normal. Yeah. So yeah, they're lordlies. You know what I'm talking about. It takes a bit to finalize our decision because Yeshua is saying, so what are other people saying about the dietary laws? What do you say? Well, I say what you say. Okay, well, let's see. What did I say? We go in academically and we look at it in a scholarly way with language already through a lens that says the Father gave us beautiful laws. It makes sense that they're seamless and unchanging. Let's see. Barbara tipping, amen. Yes, Laura Lee, it's a paradigm shift. Exactly. It's a complete paradigm shift. So what happens is if you're new and you're struggling with this, you're working through this, you're going to encounter a friend with really great arguments that are going to touch all the buzzwords that you knew all those other years. And then you're like, oh. And then you come and you're like, okay, I'm going to look at it. I hope I was. And then it bears out again. It will bear out every time. Every single time, Torah will rise. It'll always be elevated. It will never be abolished. It'll never be behind you. And it wouldn't be good for you if it was. The message from the Creator is that He's unchanging. And from an attachment lens, that's the best news ever. And that is the good news. The good news is I am. Not meaning me, meaning Him. If He is, everything's possible for me to be safe and contained in that pasture. I don't want Him to change. I'm so glad He doesn't change. And there's a connection here with Jonah of how upset he was that these horrible heathens were going to be redeemed. It was like, wait, this doesn't feel just. And you're a just God. And right, there's a lot of connections here. I wish we had time really to go into that. But the Torah will continue to bear out. Now, as we pursue Torah, and I'm saying this to my friends here that are chatting with me, that are experienced, been doing this a long time, you know what I'm saying. We don't get it right all the time. We don't do everything right. We struggle in Babylon. It's very difficult to deal with social settings and social situations. You're not eating the thing they're eating. You brought your own food or whatever. These are all things that really can interrupt the intimacy. And then it's great. You still love your family. You still love your friends, even though you eat different things. But it's really great when you get with other Torah believers, which is always like such a delight, because you get there and everyone's like, hey, just make sure there's no bacon in that salad. And you're not the only one. Not that it matters, because Yeshua is pulling us out of groupthink. He's saying, think like me, get an allegiance with me. I'm going to give you the key so that you can go in and see how the whole thing's set up and report back to everybody else, because you're going to be on target once you've seen it. Once you've seen what I have already done as the big immovable rock, then you can go and you can tell everybody else about the good news I've already written. You're not writing it. You're repeating it. You're like, I got the key and I saw it. I didn't write it. I didn't arrange it. I didn't build it. He's the carpenter. We're not the carpenter. He's the stonemason, right? Laura Lee, I love how you bring forth his forever love and his loving boundaries. You're a breath of fresh air. Oh, thank you, Laura Lee. And you are a breath of fresh air. And I'm so glad that, and it just, the fact that this touches your heart just makes me so emotional, because I want people to be with me and just to be like, yes, you know what, no matter what's happening around me and how crazy everything is and how upsetting things can be right now, the Father is I am. And that is all sometimes we can cling to, is that he is I am. And that's all we have. And it's enough. And it's already been done for us. I'm getting emotional here, but it's already been done for us. We don't have to recreate the wheel. We don't have to write these things. We just have to say, can I have the key to that room? Because I'm going to love whatever's in there. Just want you to know. And the Father reads your heart and he knows, yeah, she's in. Here's the key. Go look. And you look around and you're in amazement. And that's what searching the Torah is. It's just getting in that room and just going, oh my goodness, this key also opens this door. Oh, look at that room. Oh, that's amazing. See, I never knew it had that room. And that's exciting, because that room helps me explain that room. You get the keys. And you're not even wanting to arrange anything. It's already amazing. And so you come back. When I say come back, it's in your midst, right? You report, I had the keys and I saw stuff. And I'm in allegiance with what I saw. And here's how this goes today. Don't shoplift. There's no shoplifting in the kingdom. Period. I was given the keys, I saw, and the way the kingdom operates, people don't steal from other people. People operate in fair measures, fair weights and measures. There's no deception in the kingdom. There's no manipulation. There's boundaries that are good. There's safety. There's protection. There's covering. Yes, there's discipline, because we all have to be safe. And none of us are going to do it right. So I'm going to be disciplined and corrected, and so are you. And we're not going to despise it, because we are sons and daughters. We are going to remember to whom we belong, that we can be disciplined. Because we don't discipline other people's kids. When you have kids and you'd be like, oh, if my kid did that, wow, there would be a very strongly worded conversation. But that's not my kid. So there's safety in intimacy in these laws. Very particularly, I think the dietary laws, very particularly. So does that clear anything up about the keys? Is that a better visual for you? It's a small thing. I think it's a big thing. I think, kind of important to understand this. And we're just getting there. So this leads me into other people. and the way that they operate. So I might have an ability to share the dietary laws with people in a way that's non-threatening and not shaming to them, and they can feel safe to hear it, right? Because we can't learn when we're not safe. I read a quote, not maybe the last show, but maybe the show before then. Laura Lee says, yes, I love this. So validating to what he has been speaking to me about. Yeah, so we are in allegiance. But so if one of the things that I can do is that I can talk to people about the dietary laws and be non-threatening and they can learn because they're not afraid of me. Because regardless of their decision, I'm going to be their friend. I'm going to still be their cousin and their aunt I love them. And I don't care what they do. And I don't care is a strong word. I care about everything. But it's not my place to be the Holy Spirit for anybody and convict anybody of anything. But if I'm given the keys, I can describe what I saw. Because I saw it firsthand. Because I walked with the Messiah. I ate with him. I saw what he ate. And I want to eat what he eats and the way he eats it. And I want to be like him. Though I can't be all the way like him because I don't have the authority he has. A lot of people challenge that. We have all the authority he had. But, I'm not going to go into the temple with whips and chains, whips and. So I don't think that's really accurate, right? Because he had to, under what authority do you say these things, right? They ask him. He actually answers that with a question, right? Well, I'll answer this question if you answer this question. He was very smart. Of course, being God, he would be. But the point I was trying to make is, so that might be an area of strength for me. That might not be an area of strength with you. You might be better at talking at something else because maybe you get mad or upset. Now, if you get mad or upset about things, that's called being human. And if that's your right hand, you need to cut it off and don't have that conversation. Like if you can't talk about different holidays without getting really angry or upset, it's not your calling, right? It's not your gift. It's not your strength. Everybody doesn't have to have every strength. You can have you don't need 1,000 strengths. You might just need a few. So do a little self-inventory, look at what your strengths are and operate in those strengths and build the kingdom the way you were made. Now that doesn't mean don't strive to, let the Father eliminate the anger toward other people or whatever, or whatever is getting triggered in you. If they're not living up to your predetermined expectations, that would be ideal in a Torah setting. That's not going to always work out for you because the people are going to get in the way of, being the people. That's the point of people. So don't be too hard on yourself if that's just not a topic that you can really confront or handle. Because if you can't, that's okay. Just don't do it. That's your wisdom. It doesn't mean you had to have it conquered for administration, but you need to have it at least conquered for elimination, right? You have to be able to pull yourself out of the things that you can't handle. So if talking about the dietary laws brings you down, brings others down, it isn't edifying, it doesn't build the kingdom, it creates dissension and division, then don't talk about it. If you can share in a way that is, I've got the key, would you like to peek in that room? You can't touch anything. I can't touch anything, but I can look at it, admire it. Someday I'm going to be sitting in one of those chairs, right? Remember this. Right? You're letting people take a glimpse and a peek into something you've been given the keys to. And they haven't seen it. They don't know what it smells like in there and that breeze and all the stuff that you know about that room and you love and you want them to know that so badly. You could taste it for them. But we have free will and we have our own process. We have our own timetable. The Father has set forth so many things we don't understand. And here's the beautiful part. All sin that was unintentional is just so completely covered. That's one thing. We can just, I love that room, don't you? Given the keys to know that. He's got us covered. And so we can predetermine an idealistic idea of the way this person, we might think, oh, I had this conversation with this person and I really saw their eyes light up. And then this is excellent. And then the next day you see them, eating a BLT and you're like, oh, I failed. This didn't work. I'm so depressed. Don't do that. Don't let yourself go there. You didn't fail. I'm not even saying they failed because they might just have not seen this yet. They don't have the key to that room. They haven't seen that room. They haven't enjoyed that room. And so every now and then we get the keys, right? And we go into that house and it's like the new house smell again, right? It was like, that's what I would call returning to your first love. Do you ever get that? Have you had that during this experience? Anybody on the line there? Anyone with this COVID thing? Has anybody had that moment where you just kind of like, wow, I think I don't want to learn 5 billion new things. I actually just want to think I want to deal with what I have learned. Anyone in that place? I'm curious. Barbara, if you were like that. I had a big revelation for myself about that. Like, deal with what you know and walk this out now. Not stop learning, for sure, ever. I don't, want to ever stop getting to know the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I don't want to ever stop getting to know more about him and see more rooms. But keeping pace with the Joneses, or in this case, it would be what? The Cohens. Maybe we don't need to always be thinking that way. I am honing the gifts and talents. Time is short. Yeah, Laura Lee. Yeah, yes. Barbara tipping. Yes, thank you. Yeah, because that's exactly what I'm saying. Is like, yeah, we don't really know what the next thing is. We don't know what's going to happen. We know we have another feast cycle happening, which is the associated, the mirror flip of, we have the fall feast coming up because we're here this beautiful summer day, and that's going to fade into our fall feast cycle. What's that going to look like, right? What's going to happen? Because we know that these are an outline of the future. So who knows this year or next year what's happening? So we're kind of really, every few minutes, I'm rattling my pocket to make sure the keys are there, that I can see the rooms, right? And that's kind of like when you're opening your Bible, it's like, this isn't the Bible, but some Bible scriptures are in here. It's like, I'm going to go into these rooms and see what's in there. You know what I mean? Just like, I need to go in there. I need to be safe. It's raining. It's snowing. It's hailing. And so I think that place that we're in right now is really returning to our first love, where we're just really glad we have some keys and really appreciative that he opened our eyes to know where they were hanging. And then showed us it was all that he's put it all in here for us. And yes, fall feast. Yeah, so we have that to come up. So today I just really wanted to touch on that one thing with the dietary laws. I wanted to kind of help remind you not to get absorbed into groupthink of any kind, except when those worshipers are just so incredible. And those people that are kingdom building, yeah, enjoy groupthink in that way. But when it comes to what's all the people who don't walk close to Yeshua, what are they saying? Well, they might have all kinds of interesting theories. Some of these were very interesting about who they thought he was. Some of them seemed kind of righteous. But who do you say I am? Well, you walk with me and you talk with me and you eat with me. Well, that's what you do. If you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you are with him too. And so you have the keys. And so we share this together. We share the keys and we go in and we look around. So I really hope today was an encouragement to you. I hope that it was taking the Brit Hadashah portion that was developed today. And the fact that we bypassed the Torah portion itself, because it was more complicated than we could do it justice for, like, that will be something in the future that we're going to talk about more. But I need to develop, that's a tough one. I need to develop that and maybe show more slides and kind of help. That's going to be a little more wordy and a little deeper. Not that this isn't deep. I'm not saying we're not having a really deep conversation, because I do think today we touched on intimacy. We touched on being set apart, peculiar people, and owning that, right? Just being okay that we're peculiar, and actually not pride filled, but excited, right? We got keys, and we walk a different way, and that's just the way it is. That's how we live. And we don't despise our correction. We don't despise that our lives look different from the rest of the people's lives, and we don't try to push things on them or judge them or not love them. But we love our neighbor as ourselves, and the Father loves you. And so whatever's happened before, if you were not sure about something, you learned something today and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. You know what? The future begins now. And I pray you did learn something. I learned something as I'm talking, because you bring forth things that actually stir things in me. And I think, oh, I just had a thought. I'm going to explore something. So I'm always the wheels are turning even as I'm talking to you. But I do appreciate you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate especially you coming on and talking to me. And we walk together, Barb says, and she is right. We do. We walk together, and we are together, and we're safe when we're together. And what's important to know is that we're designed to be together. And right now we are out of the design, though we're in such a time as this where it's meant to be that we're out of design, so we can realize that, because our measuring stick of doing it right is when we do it wrong. We go, oh, okay, right? And that's why the Torah shows us what the sin is, because the reflection is, I'm this, and I'm looking at Torah. What are the differences? Wow, I do see the stains. I do see the dirt. I do see the stuff. And the beauty is we have the best cleanser ever. We have the complete cleanser. He cleanses us as white as snow, as far as north is to south and east is to west, to all four corners, right? It exists no more. So we are redeemed. We have a redeemer. We are the redeemed. We are the peculiar, key-carrying, redeemed people. And the Father has his remnant. So I really bless you. I thank you for knowing that the future begins now and sharing in this moment with me today, to just have a few minutes to just be together. And I look forward to next time that we meet, and share this with a friend if you feel like they need a little pick-me-up. So thank you. My website is New Covenant Path, and you can check that out. My Becky book that we talked about today is Peter's Vision, Beacon or Bacon. So I'll see you next time, and just remember, the future begins now.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.